I was CTO of AutoScout24 and managing director of Home Shopping Europe. Both companies were private equity owned, so I have a bit of a background in increasing value in a company. When I started with AutoScout, part of the Scout group, we were a startup. And then in 2014, we were bought by Hellman & Friedman with a 2 billion euro valuation. We IPO'd 18 months later with a 3.8 billion euro valuation. And in 2019, when I left the company with a multiple of 20 plus, the valuation was around 11 billion euro. For me as a CTO, this was quite challenging. I thought we were a great organization. We were releasing 12 times a day on our on-premise Oracle data center. Very agile. When we went on the large Microsoft conferences, we got the largest rooms. And then in the very first meeting with the new CEO, and this guy had cloud experience, he came from Australia in 2014, he asked me 2 questions, very strategic questions. And I was actually prepared to defend and fight for not having to outsource my data center to India. But he asked me 2 questions. And the very first was, Matthias, do you attract talent? And my answer was yes. In 2013, it was late 2013, we were really agile. We were, from our perspective, delivering a lot of value. But then he asked a second question. He did not really discuss with me, but he asked a second question. And the second question was, how does a 21st century tech stack look like? So how does a modern IT organization and technology tech stack look like? And then after 8 minutes, my half-hour meeting with the new CEO was over. And it was pretty clear these 2 questions are going to guide my transformation story. And then I realized with the technology stack that we had, on-premise data center, Oracle database, Microsoft technology, we were the most attractive employer on this technology stack. But then we had a look at the European startup scene and we realized from 100 companies we looked at, just 2 had the same technology stack. And so we realized we were hiring for attitude, as you should, not for skill. But then we had to train all of the staff that we hired on our internet technology. And this is why we did a large cloud transformation, all in on AWS, cloud native, from a monolith to microservices, from AWS technology to AWS technologies to a microservice-based infrastructure. And this was part of the story why we were able to reduce costs in our IT operations by 50%, reinvested everything in software development, and with massive experimentation on pricing, go-to-market strategy, sales approach, and features on the platform, we were able to increase their revenue massively. And the transformation that the Scout Group did from 2014 to 2018 is the homework that many organizations still have to do. And unfortunately, this homework is not going away. We got additional homework to do, and this is generative AI, and this is the topic I am going to talk about. So many organizations are constrained. And so at Scout, we were constrained by budget. It was pretty clear we are going to stay flat on budget, and in the first year we had to reduce budget by 20%. So what would you do if your constraints were removed? And Amazon was founded in 1996 as an online bookstore. It was an online bookstore, and we were constrained from the beginning by technology. So I started in tech in the late 90s, in 2000, and I can remember very well how hard it was, session handling, all the web traffic handling, and so Amazon was constrained. And as a consequence, we did 3 things. The first, we introduced what we call 2 pizza teams. So we are 1.5 million employees at Amazon, but we are organized in small teams, no team larger than that you can feed it with 2 American-sized pizzas. So we are small startups inside of a large enterprise. Second, we introduced microservices 8 years ahead before the famous book was written. And both strategies were implemented to create a loosely coupled organization, reduce constraints and move in a loosely coupled organization. And what we also introduced was 2 pizza teams, microservice architecture, and yes, the you build it, you run it setup. So each of our service is operated by their own teams. And this, you build it, you run it infrastructure, is now the business of AWS. And AWS is itself a 100 billion euro business. And what we did while reinventing our own IT infrastructure, we made it available for everyone. And since 2006, we help organizations, and Scout was one of it, to scale globally and reduce cost at the same time. And for us, this is driven by our culture of innovation. So yesterday, I attended a customer meeting talking about transformation. And our customers, they all talk about transformation. And I realized, so I'm now 4.5 years with Amazon, that we internally don't talk about transformation. Do we use the word transformation? No. We use it in the context of customer conversations, but we face the same issues. Growth, dependencies, budget restrictions. But we use always the word innovation. We talk about our culture of innovation and how we can innovate and not how to transform. And so for us, the sky, based on this culture of organization, the culture of innovation, and the loosely coupled organization tech stack, the sky is not longer the limit. And this is why this online bookstore is putting 3,200 satellites in low Earth orbit to bring affordable internet to every community around the world as an online bookstore. And what recently happened is that there are no limits to the imagination as well. And this is what generative AI brought to us 2 or 3 years ago. So for every knowledge worker, we now entered a new area of what we are able to do. And this happens now and then. One example is when Haber and Bosch, 2 German scientists around 1900, invented a new procedure to produce ammonia. And ammonia is a key ingredient for fertilizer. And this new fertilizer enabled a lot of food creation for every country around the world. And this is what we're going to see with generative AI as an enabler for a lot of growth for businesses and society as well. What we saw last year was that many organizations are looking for prototyping and increasing, coming up with use cases. But they struggle still to find proper use cases. We will talk about it a bit later, but they especially struggle to scale. And this is the mission of the technology stack and the product offering that AWS provides you. We're going to provide you a technology stack that helps you to scale, that you're able to scale generative AI next to all of your other transactional and analytical workloads in your organization. And we work with data-driven organizations so we perceive ourselves as being a data-driven organization, and we work with data-driven organizations for the last 20 years. And this is our perception of characteristics of an AI-driven organization. And these organizations, they use data to their advantage. They are able to innovate rapidly based on data and anecdotes. They drive efficiency. They deliver personalization at scale, and personalization in many businesses, it's not really personalization. Actually, it's just clustering. You're creating clusters of customer profiles. These organizations really drive personalization. They develop new revenue streams, and they benefit from ongoing talent advantage. And for Scout, and this new CEO of Scout, attracting top talent in the market was a key enabler for the growth of the business. And in this keynote, this is this year's keynote of my team for executive-focused events, we talk about 3 aspects: learn, build, establish, lead, act, and then actually how to go and drive business value. And when we talk about learn, we mean learn what is possible. What use cases are out there? And what we see, and this is based out of a study from Accenture, that actually 80+% of companies that are reinventing or transforming their organization have accelerated their efforts due to generative AI. And 9% of companies that considered the most progressive and outpacing competitors on revenue growth significantly. And the number one cause for change was technology. And this is new. There is also a study from New Vantage Partner on what are the biggest challenges on the business adoption of data, so your business using your data. And the core topic for the last years, and it was always 90%+ of organizations said, culture. Culture is the biggest issue for the business, or the biggest challenge for the business adoption of data. 2 years ago, technology came up with 26 because everyone thought about how can we leverage generative AI. And now hundreds of thousands of customers already use AWS for running their machine learning AI workloads on AWS. And this is one example how Amazon is using generative AI. So right now you can ask in the Amazon search bar, please compare 2 different types of coffee makers. And then the system is showing you some coffee makers and it gives you an explanation of what are the difference on drip and pour over coffee makers. And then you can ask follow-up questions. Which is easier to clean? Yeah, important question if you think about buying a coffee maker. And then the system gives you an answer based on the description of the products, based on the data that the model provides, plus the millions of customer reviews that Amazon has. So this model is fine-tuned and customized with the data of us. Unfortunately, when we talk with customers about the use cases, and this reminds me a lot on the early days of the internet where I was a consultant at KPMG, the companies, they just think about improving internal efficiencies. How can we use generative AI for increasing efficiency in our organization? Meaning writing emails faster and creating PowerPoints faster. And what will be the effect? More emails, more PowerPoints? What are we going to do with the 80 minutes that a knowledge worker saves with generative AI? More meetings, more PowerPoints? I don't think so. But this was the same when I started discussing with customers about how to use web technology. So we digitalized travel expenses. But at the same side, startups came up. Amazon was one of the startups leveraging digital technologies. And this is what we're going to see as well. We're going to see that organizations use generative AI for increased efficiency. But as we saw digital native organizations emerge, and the digital native companies challenge traditional companies, we're going to see generative AI native companies emerge. And they are going to challenge all of our business models. And when you think about use cases, don't think just about internal efficiencies, really think about how you can pivot your current business model or even based on the strengths in your product portfolio, in your organization, come up with new business models. So we recommend really explore new use cases. Attend events like this. Talk to peers in the industry, talk to partners, talk to consultancies. And I brought another example because I was a bit bored about all these chat examples. This is a factory for cookies. And imagine you are a new supervisor. You got trained half a day on observing this factory. But now what actually is happening, that you have an error in the cookie factory. So you have a cookie shape anomaly detected by visual recognition systems. And now generative AI gives you a summary of the initial diagnosis of what might be potential root causes and what is going on in the rather complex factory. It also provides some actions. You can ask certain activities, show it in 3D, what is actually happened. It shows you some pictures of the malfunctions. And then you ask, transform it to the freezer tunnel. And then it shows you some data on the actual area where the issue happens. And then it provides you a lot of data. Yeah, because I asked, can you provide me data? But actually, I'm new. I really don't understand what's going on. But then you can ask, can you analyze the last 15 minutes for me? Because I'm new and I don't have a clue what's going on. Then it provides a summary. What happened in this freezer tunnel in the last 15 minutes? And it provides additional guidance to address this issue. And this is a use case for driving internal efficiency, but this is a use case that goes beyond having more emails, writing emails faster, or having much more PowerPoints, but because this is not what we want. If you're interested in more use cases, what AWS customers are doing around the world, we have created the AWS AI Use Case Explorer. This is a deep link into it, and there you can search for use cases for every industry. My recommendation, if you really want to know what your customers are interested in and how you could leverage generative AI in your organization, get out of your building. Get out of your building and visit your customers at their office, their factory, their site. And observe what they are doing, what are the challenges, and then come up with new ideas how your organization with your strengths and your products can improve the experience of your customer with generative AI. And you always, and this is how Amazon works, we always work backwards from customer needs. Needs they know or needs they don't really know, and then we try to come up with a solution. We're not really listening to them proposing a solution, but we are really looking at what are the problems and what are the needs. So, after you have come up with use cases, you need to build a solution. You need to build a solution that is able to scale. And our recommendation is you need to choose the right tools. And this is what we at Amazon try to build for our customers. We try to build an infrastructure that provides a differentiation and innovation. So for us, with responsible AI being a big topic, our infrastructure is built for security. It provides you choice, easy to use, so that not just a data science can use our infrastructure tools. And the main purpose is we want to help you to drive value and innovation for your customers. And our thinking about a generative AI technology stack is a 3-layered technology stack with the actual tools and applications for your knowledge workers to use generative AI, providing an infrastructure to come with your own models if you want to. And from my perspective, the most important one as a former CTO, tools and infrastructure and services to inject generative AI in every single of your current applications. And the service and the tool that we provide for this is Amazon Bedrock. And what Amazon Bedrock is, it's a service that provides a choice of models. So you can different models because there is not one model for a single company, not very often for a single use case. So we see customers using different models for a single use case, creating content with a certain model, enriching it with another model. And Amazon Bedrock is a service that is already used by tens of thousands of customers because it's very simple to start. It's a managed service. You press a button and then the service is available. You can choose a model to choose, and Amazon helps you to choose the model that is the best fit for your use case. At the bottom layer, we provide silicon chips and services to come up and train with your own models. And at the top layer, we introduced Amazon Q. Amazon Q is our application chat agent for different purposes. There is an agent for business, for developers, QuickSight, this is business intelligence. If you want to have a conversation with your reporting, so to say, this is QuickSight. Connect is for call centers, and supply chain is for if you want to have conversation with your supply chain. And this is one of the examples. It's Amazon Q for business. I was on vacation and I want to know, hey, what happened in my team while I was on vacation for a certain topic? And then it summarizes out of the data of the organization what was discussed in proposing an event like this. It reads the internal system. It comes up with some team meeting notes. And then I can ask certain questions on specific tasks. I'm lazy. And this is what a colleague said to me, Matthias, you're smart and lazy, so I really love generative AI. And now I can say, okay, I figured out what are my to-dos that were defined while I went on vacation, and I also can create certain tasks in certain system because Amazon Q right now have over 40 connectors to your internal systems. But this feature is the most important one, is the Amazon Q Apps Creator. We believe that you should not have a single generative AI application for all of your business that knows all of your data. Actually, it should know all of your data, but not every one of your employees should have access to all of your company data. And this is why with Amazon Q, it's very easy to create Amazon Q apps, and each app supports a certain use case. So one use case for marketing, one use case for legal, one use case for finance. And with certain rights and responsibilities, the people who are using Amazon Q have just access to the data that they need to fulfill this use case. When you have chosen the right tool, you need to find the right balance. And the right balance in the magic triangle of 3 criteria. One is performance of your model, the accuracy, and for sure the cost. Generative AI can be costly. And when we talk about model performance, then it's more than speed. So it includes reaction time. You have to think about the size of the input. So how many pages of legal documents, finance statements can you enter in the prompt? And how much do you allow the model to output? What also drives costs is, do you take the model out of the box? Or do you want to invest in pre-training and customizing your model? Fine-tuning is improving accuracy, and both is improving performance. But both also improve cost. What also drives cost is the inference cost. Inference is when you ask the model a certain questions, and then a larger context window. So asking or being able to input 100 pages of Word legal document drives cost. At the other hand, if you limit it too much, it will also drive cost because the people have to prompt more often. So you need to find the right balance between how much input and output you allow this generative AI use case in your organization for your customers. And you can't know before. And this is why with generative AI, with every use case, you need to experiment. And you need to have proper A/B testing in place from an analytics perspective and from an application perspective that you can measure and optimize. What also drives cost is which model you choose. So these is an example of one of the Anthropic modules, and they provide the Claude 3 model, but in different versions. Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. And Haiku is less intelligent, but it's cheap. Opus is very intelligent, but expensive. I have an Anthropic subscription. I don't really care. I always choose the best model because I want to leverage my subscription fees as much as I can. But you as an organization, you might be more cost cautious. And because of this, you need to decide which model has the best price performance for this certain use case. And this is why whatever model you choose, you have to be aware and test what is the intelligence it provides, what it needs, and what are the costs. And ideally, we would like to maximize all options. Low cost, high accuracy, and high performance. But this is not going to happen. And so for every use case, you need to figure out what is the area that you want to cover. So for a service chatbot, for example, you want to have high performance, lower cost, and you're willing to make compromises on the accuracy. But now think about a legal documentation summarization chatbot. There you want to have very high accuracy. From a performance perspective, it might be okay that you wait a minute or even 5 until it's processed. And so it's more costly because accuracy drives cost. And you need to figure out for every use case what is the proper setup that you provide. And this is why we recommend that you have generative AI experiments. It always starts with identify use cases, tons of use cases. Then you need to assemble a cross-functional team. It's not a job of your data science teams or your data engineers. It must be driven by business, and business people, product people must be part of this team, maybe together with people from legal. And then, because we talk about an experiment, you need to define an expected result. What is the accuracy we want? What are the costs that we are willing to accept? And what is the performance we want? And then you need to try out different models. Then you need to try out different model customization, proper prompting, RAG, fine-tuning, pre-training, and then iterate until this experimentation and this setup meets the expectations that you have on accuracy, performance, and cost. And then you can establish a business case and prepare for production. And it's actually not really easy to run these experiments and choose the models and the proper fine-tuning technique. And this is one of the features in the services of Amazon Bedrock. It has a service which is called Amazon Bedrock Model Evaluation Service. And you can enter some example data into this service. You can define and choose some of the criteria in the service. And then in hours, instead of weeks, this service gives you a recommendation for which is the best model and the best customization strategy for this type of data and for this use case. And if you have the right balance in your use case, still you can pull some levers to optimize cost and performance. And this is an indicative CTO calculation, total cost of ownership calculation for a call center application. And we believe that around 25% will be the usage cost of the model itself. 15% will be model fine-tuning and optimizing costs. Then you have the cost for the cloud compute infrastructure of the general application, and you have expensive for your talent, for reskilling and upskilling, and you have to calculate in on top costs or ethical and AI and governance and general operational and support cost. So the actual model cost is just 25% of your overall cost. And this will drive the decisions in your business case. And if you want to change the total cost of ownership, you have 3 levers that you can pull. As we said, model type and size. What is the model I choose? What is the type of it? What is the size that we want? The 3 aspects. And then you can invest in prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is basically the art of asking the right questions in this chat window. And you can train, and you should train your people on asking the proper questions, providing the right context, providing the right information, provide the right outcomes. Because as more accurate the prompt is, as faster you get the results, as less questions the people have to ask, and less costly is it. So it's well invested money. And I'm not really confident that many organizations are going to do it. And why? My example is always Excel. Excel is such a powerful tool. Everyone has it on its desktop and on its laptop. But most people I know, they just know how to sum up a column and how to change the color of a cell. But most of the features that Excel provides, most people really don't know. And this is why I'm very skeptic that many organizations are going to invest in proper prompt engineering, and that the average knowledge worker is going really to leverage prompt engineering and generative AI. And so, for you, it's easy to make a difference when you invest in, and it's really not expensive, proper prompt engineering. After you have built your infrastructure, you need to establish a data differentiator. What we did so far, we've chosen a generic generative AI model. Everyone can use Claude 3 Sonnet. Your competitors got the same model as you. What makes a difference is your data. And 93% of CDOs agree that a data strategy is crucial for getting value out of generative AI. This is out of a joint service, AWS and the MIT. But just half of them have actually changed the company's data strategy. So they know they have to do something, but they are not yet acting on it. But we have customers, and this is from Sanofi, the CDO. He says that generative AI really hinges on high-quality business-ready data. It's your data that is going to make the difference. And who is familiar with the claim, data is in your oil? Yeah, I can remember very well. It was the time when we talked about big data around 2008, when a UK scientist came up with data is in your oil. And as a consequence, and I did the same with Hadoop clusters, we started to store every type of data that we had in an organization. So I'm part of a small team of former CTOs. We have a CTO from the Capital One Bank in the team. We have a former CTO from NASA in the team. And we have 2 people out of the pharmaceutics industry. And I discussed exactly this aspect in one of the team meetings. I said, what is our recommendation for data storage strategy? And the banking guy, Capital One guy, said, you just store what you absolutely need, and mainly for regulatory reasons. And if you don't longer need it for regulatory, you delete it, because then regulatories can't prove that you had any mistake in your data. The pharmaceutical guy said, are you kidding? Yeah, data is an asset. We store every data of every experiment, even what we did 20 years ago. And the same was true with the NASA guy. And so I believe data is the new wine. It's not the new oil, it's the new wine, because there are some types of wine, they are best when you drink them when they are young. And if they're getting too old, you can't just use them. While other types of wine, they're getting better and better and more valuable when they are older. But this comes with a price. And you need, as an organization, to master certain capabilities. You need to collect the right data. Not all data, but the right data that you really need to drive business value for your customers. You need to clean up the data. You need to have proper data annotation and versioning and documentation. And the label should not be version 2023, 351, whatever it is. And you need to know through which systems and pipelines the data already went. So you need to have a data strategy in place for your data and for generative AI. And this is why we recommend, and this is what we see across the board with many customers, they accelerate the data strategy and moving more, and I hope the right data, to the cloud. You don't need to have all data, but the data that drives business value for customers should be in the cloud. Our next recommendation is, when you want to establish such a data strategy, you need to establish tenets. Amazon is driven by principles. So we have our leadership principles that drive our behaviors, and every team comes up with their own tenets. What are the core beliefs? And these are examples. If you want to establish tenets for a data strategy, you might come up with respect user privacy, consent, and confidential rights. Documentation should empower, not overwhelm, curate data sets that reflect diverse perspectives. Sometimes principles are not aligned with each other. They're set up to create some conflict in the organization to have healthy discussions. And with such principles, I also drove the transformation at Scout. And then you need to iteratively improve when you create your data. So don't start and collecting all of your data. Just don't migrate all of your data. So let value be your guide. As we said, work backwards from your customers. Think about what are customer use cases, what are the experiments you want to do in the next quarter, and what are you actually able to do. And then collect this data. And build specific capabilities in your data architecture. Not every capability is needed. Avoid speculative design. And then focus on key points of the data lifecycle to ensure quality. And then just get going and improve. And with this specific data that you use to customize your data, you can establish your data differentiator. But then you also have to use generative AI in your organization. And generative AI is just a tool. It will change the work, but not the workers. So none of us will really get replaced by generative AI. And so reskilling and upskilling, we talked about prompt engineering is going an issue. 57% of organizations are looking to upskill or reskill existing employees due to a survey by McKinsey. I wonder what the others are going to do. So yeah, you know, probably reskilling and training is costly, but not training and reskilling is more costly. 30% of organizations are using a mixture of hiring new talent and contracting. And 25% of middle managers' time is spent on individual contributor and administrative tasks. And this is what you're going to change. And what we recommend is that you decomplexify your work first. Before you introduce generative AI in improving internal efficiencies and changing, just providing new tools, complex tools, we recommend that you redesign your work to really leverage the benefits of generative AI. It's the same with cloud computing. I see many customers who use cloud as they did the data center. And then they wonder, why they don't leverage the full benefits of cloud. And will happen again with generative AI. It's not just a tool in your process, you also have to redesign your current processes. Then you can optimize it and then automate it with generative AI and non-generative AI tools. Where does it belong in my organization? Is it a central data science generative AI team, or how do we do it? And our recommendation is take an inspiration from HR and finance. Who is doing budgets in your organization? Who is hiring people? It's not HR, it's not finance. The heads of the departments, the people who really knows the business, they do the actual business of the departments and they hire the people and they reskill and develop the people. Nevertheless, you have a finance department, and nevertheless, you have a human resource department. And this is what we recommend with generative AI. You should have a central team, like a generative AI center of excellence, who provide tools for the other parts of your organization to really drive value. So you should have a centralized team for your AI strategy, providing AI infrastructure and platforms, do research, also do AI talent management, and they are the authority in regards of AI security and compliance. But the actually implementation of the use cases and driving the business value needs to happen by the people closest to your customers. So the AI application development should be decentralized. The people supporting your AP system must be able to inject and implement generative AI in the application. The people who are building and running your e-commerce shop need to be able to implement generative AI in the e-commerce shop. So you need more distributed knowledge in your organization. What we also see, organizations that had a CIO and then introduced a CTO and then a CDO now thinking about a chief AI officer. And we advise against it. Because you're moving in a more functional and more siloed organization. Your CDO should be able to cover this as well. And maybe even your CTO, CIO should be able to run your transactional workloads, your analytical workloads, and also your generative AI workloads. What you have to do is you need to prepare people for new roles, because some roles and some jobs and some processes are going to change. And what skills does everyone need? So my hope is that we're not going to do more emails and more PowerPoints, but really free up resources to be more creative. And so invest in design thinking, invest in creativity techniques, also invest in office environments that sparks creativity. Invest in prompt engineering. Think about my example with Excel. Just summing up a column. This is not what should happen with generative AI in your organization. You need to have people who are able to think critically, because generative AI finally is just making things up based on probabilities. You need to improve data literacy so that people can handle the data and the insights that generative AI provides, and people need to be able to cope with change. And I love to quote Karl Valentin here. Karl Valentin is a famous Bavarian philosopher, and he said, I'm happy when it's raining. Ich freue mich, wenn es regnet. Because when I'm not happy, it's raining anyway. Ja, ich freue mich, wenn es regnet, weil wenn ich mich nicht freue, regnet es auch. Work is going to change. We can prepare our staff that we are going to change it, but it will be beneficial for all the customers, the workers, and the company. From a technical perspective, you need new technical skills as well. You need to have skills that you can evaluate AI models, engineer MI models, ML ops, and you need to have this knowledge in your central generative AI or data organization, and you need also have this knowledge in the distributed and decentralized parts of your organization. And when it comes to training and upskilling these skills, you have broad options. You can retain, you can upskill, you can reskill, you can retire unneeded skills, you can recruit new skills, or you can even redesign work and processes. What we recommend, the primary strategy should be upskilling of the people that you have. And this is a recent topic that we hear with every migration. Also, we talk about migration, we talk about new culture, new processes, and then the customer says, yeah, but I don't have the people. And our answer is, yes, you have the people. You have the talent that you have, they know your customers, they know your products, but invest in your people. And so if you want to upskill your people in regards of generative AI, think about establish, if you're large enough, about your AI academy or having AI community and an AI group that meets once a month, Friday afternoon, and discusses generative AI use cases. Identify AI talent multipliers. So every organization has innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. Use the innovators and use the early adopters in your organization to drive generative AI in your organization. And then, and this is what AWS is doing from the early beginning on, I joined or started working with AWS in 2012. We want our customers to get hands-on. And this really works. And it's much easier with generative AI than with any technology before. So really get people hands-on with your generative AI, and then even maybe host internal AI conferences or attend external events like this. And it's not just a new tool, it's about creativity, it's changing the work, so it's also requesting a new mindset in the organization. And the three main criteria that we see is adaptability, because what we saw over the last 20 years is increasing speed of change in an organization. So your people need to be able to adapt. And the driver for adaptability is curiosity. As I said, we don't talk at Amazon about transformation. And transformation is often so overloaded with negative vibes. We talk about innovation. And innovation is about curiosity. And you need to have a continuous approach to learning. This is also driven about curiosity. And it also provides or requires culture of psychological safety and a failure culture. So at Amazon we experiment, and for us it's pretty sure when we experiment you will be successful, but you will also fail. And failure in our organization is a success. And when you have led the change in your organization, what you need to do is, because generative AI is making things up, you need to have responsible AI program in your organization. And right now we can't really foresee what is going to happen with this technology. And this was true with the internet as well. So online fashion was not supposed to happen. In the early days of the internet, everyone was pretty sure pictures are too large. No governance is going to invest in the needed infrastructure, maybe just Singapore. And no one is going to buy clothes, jeans, t-shirts that they haven't tried out before. Whom of you have ordered fashion online in the last 3 months? It was not supposed to happen. And at the beginning of new technology, we are not really good in seeing the long-term aspects. Right now, we don't know which generative AI businesses and challengers are going to approach us. Perplexity AI is a challenger for Google, and we will see more and more of these companies happen. But we don't know. But we know with this technology more than any other technology before that there are risks involved. And this is why you need to have a responsible AI program in place. And we also see regulatory more and more happen. So it happens in the US, it happens in the EU, and we believe especially for high-risk workloads, it's good that we have regulatory. And as an organization, you need to be able to manage risk in your organization. So there are several risks implied with generative AI. It's bias, it's hallucinating, you can have misuse, you can have harmful content. And this is, again, we as AWS, we're really aware about these threats that generative AI imposes for your organization. And this is another feature of Amazon Bedrock. When you have chosen a model, you can add additional filters for the model and say, for the prompts and for the outputs, we want to have additional filter on hate, insult, sexual issues, and violence. So we help you to improve the quality of your output and your input. But you need to start as an organization with building a responsible AI program first in your organization. You need to have guidance and policies in place, what is illegal and what is illegal and what is risky in your organization. We have some guidance provided, 6 steps to build a responsible AI program. These are blog posts written by one of my team members on how to come up with a responsible AI program in your organization. But the most important step is that you really understand and manage the risk. And there are 4 types of risks. Actually, there are low-risk use cases in your organization, a final and reputation risk. And you have unacceptable risk, and this risk must be understood, and this risk must be prohibited. And one use case, for example, is Adidas. Adidas uses a generative AI model that helps a designer to come up with shoes. So you can insert in a model, please generate a legacy, create a new shoe based on a legacy design as Gaudi would have designed the shoe. And then it come up with new models. So this is a low-risk use case. But we also have another customer, Merck. They use generative AI to reduce the false rejects in their manufacturing process for pharmaceutics in the manufacturing. This is high risk. And so you need to have a risk assessment in your organization. You need to have certain criteria and then certain use cases. Impaired fairness, violation of privacy, IP infringement, and other criteria. And then for each of the use cases, your data people, your legal people, and your business people need to run through these workloads, these processes, and decide what are the risk levels of this use case. And then you need to establish guardrails. Depending on the risk profile of the use case, you have to decide what to do. And the main decision is, do you want to have a human in the loop, a human on the loop, just observing, or is the human out of the loop? Think about the example with the chatbot at the Amazon side where you could ask about the coffee machine. This is human out of the loop. The Merck example is a human in the loop. A human is actively working with the system to come up with the examples. And then if you do a summarization of a legal document, for example, you have a human on the loop. Generative AI is making the actual work, but someone else is then checking it. And then we are coming to the end. If you have this infrastructure in place from a technical perspective, from an organizational perspective, and from a people perspective, you can establish and scale generative AI in your organization. And then you can get started. And the question that we get from every CEOs is, what is our generative AI strategy? I'm not really sure if you really always need a generative AI strategy. My recommendation is get out of the building, talk to your customers, observe what they are doing, what are their needs, and then come up with use cases. And based on the use cases, just drive the implementation of these use cases. 9 out of 10 are going to fail. But the one that really fulfills a customer need, this is going to drive your business. And so you need to transform mindset in your organization as well, getting a big away from we plan, we build, we ship, we go out of the building, we ideate, we evaluate, and then we experiment. Identify really worthwhile use cases, not just more emails, more PowerPoints. Think about how to pivot your business model or even create new business models based on generative AI. And the most successful business pilots, they focus on business value. Generative AI and the infrastructure that is available right now is able to deliver most of the use cases you can imagine. But the question is it really beneficial for your customers and are they willing to pay money for it? If not, it's not a successful business. So think working backwards from a customer need. And then if you have identified use cases, look for scalable wins. Really use cases that are able to scale and drive business value and evaluation for your company. And this is a recommendation that we have for every talk that we do, for every transformation, cloud transformation, agile DevOps. Don't boil the ocean. Don't boil the ocean mean we see many customers who are paralyzed by just analyzing the use case, plannings, meeting, not getting out of the building, not building prototypes. Don't boil the ocean. Get out of the building and start iterating. And maintain trust. Maintain trust with your people and maintain trust with your customers. And then Just go out, get started. Thank you very much.